All right, so welcome to our June 15th Menlo Park Environmental Quality Commission meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. At this point, I'd like to have our liaison, Rebecca Lucky, call roll.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair Tom Cabot. So roll call for tonight. So let me just get myself oriented a little bit here.
Or I can call roll.
Yeah, actually, if you could, that'd be great.
Okay, yep. All right, so I'll do the roll. And so Vice Chair LaRocca Headley.
Present.
All right. Commissioner Smith. And Commissioner Elkins.
Present.
Commissioner London.
Here.
Commissioner Lynn.
Here.
Right. And we also have our Sustainability Manager, Rebecca Lucky, and our Management Analyst, Ori Paz, assisting us from the staff. So at this point, I'd like to open the meeting up for any public comment on topics not on the regular agenda tonight. Public members may speak for up to 3 minutes about topics of interest to them that are not on today's agenda items, and then we will have comment periods for each of the agenda items as they come up. Ms. Lucky, are there any public comments at this time?
I do see a hand raised, but I do want to just remind for others who are in attendance that if you'd like to speak after the chair calls for public comment on an item on the agenda, or at this time for general public comment for items that are not on the agenda, just use the hand raise feature. It's typically next to your name on the right hand side. I'll then have the ability to unmute your microphone and you could provide your public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes, and I'll have a timer on the screen so you can keep track of your comments. And for anybody that's calling in from a landline or a cell phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand and I'll be able to see that. And just for a gentle reminder for the commissioners, we just ask that you remain on screen for the duration of the meeting. You can control your own webcams and microphones, and staff will engage webcams and microphones to make presentations or to respond to the members of the EQC. So we'll be popping on and off, but you'll remain on screen. If you need a break, you can just signal and just turn off your camera and we'll understand. So with that, I've got a hand raised. It looks like CRC staff. I'm going to unmute you, but if you could state your name, your full name, that would be great because we do capture that in the minutes.
Yes, hello, sorry about that. This is Cade Kennedy speaking, CADECANNEDY. Thank you all, the commission for sitting today, and thank you to everyone in attendance. My name, like I said, is Cade Kennedy. I'm a program manager with Climate Resilient Communities, which is an environmental justice organization working hand in hand with the frontline communities in the peninsula area to implement tangible climate solutions that bring about unity, resilience, and justice. I just wanted to inform the commission that we're working really hard on a collaboration with Stanford University, a 3-year study, which will measure how people adapt to climate change over the course of those 3 years. We're focusing our efforts in Bellhaven, North Fair Oaks, Redwood City, and East Palo Alto. And we're recruiting households to participate in the study. We hope to measure the effectiveness of different types of technology. Air sensors, air purifiers, and sleep monitors are among the things that we're looking to measure. What we've learned so far, we've conducted a small pilot of 30 homes, and we've seen really startling, indoor air quality in a lot of homes. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to just let people know that this is a resource that's available. People who participate will be able to keep the air sensors after the study is done. They'll be able to keep the air purifiers after the study is done. and they'll be able to keep the mattress sensors as well. As they'll also be receiving all of the data back that they contribute to the study at the end. They'll be receiving a report and analysis of that data and additional measures that they can implement to protect themselves. I think it's really important that everyone understand the true gravity of the health consequences of air pollution, indoor and outdoor, particularly as we're starting to see the first fires start to kick off in California. There are a lot of things that you can do to protect yourself, wearing masks during smoky times, N95s preferably, and using indoor air purifiers and closing your windows when the air quality is poor outside. I'd like to provide contact information. I don't know what the best way to do that is, but you can reach me directly, cade.kennedy@crc.actera.org, or online, climateourcommunities.org. And feel free to message us to be involved in the study, or if there's any questions that you might have related to the study. It's a tremendous opportunity. You'll be compensated for participating. You'll get to keep the technology. So it's a great way for our communities to protect themselves, start taking some steps to ensure their own homes and their own communities are resilient to the impacts of climate change, and contribute to building a lot of scientific knowledge around this issue and make sure that we're able to advance solutions that are truly efficacious and impactful, and centered on equity. Thank you very much for the time.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kennedy. That does sound like an interesting program available to the community, and I look forward to hearing how it rolls.
Thank you.
All right. So let's see, my template is actually for a different meeting. Let me find the, I think our agenda item would most likely be approval of prior May meeting minutes.
Pardon me, Chair Cabot, just want to make sure before we close
Oh, if there
public
are any
comment.
more public comments?
Yeah, so if there's anybody else, it's the last call for public comment. If you'd like to raise your hand, *9 if you're on a landline. I don't see any further hands raised. I return the meeting back to you, Chair Cabot. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And so at this point, we're on agenda item D1 of regular business to approve the May 18th, 2022 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. They're attached in the agenda. And do we have any discussion and or corrections? All right, and seeing no hands raised, I'll ask, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Let's see, moved by Commissioner London and
I'll
seconded
move to approve them. Yes.
and
Yeah.
seconded by Commissioner
second.
Elkins.
Yes. Thank you.
I'll take the roll call vote. So the motion on the floor is to approve the minutes from May, and start with Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Elkins,
Oops. Aye.
Commissioner London,
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Headley.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, and so at this time, I'd like to open up item D2, an informational presentation on the Love the Earth Festival. And I believe a member of the public who helped organize it is here to make a little presentation to us to share with us how it went and what they learned and what was accomplished. And so Ms. Lucky, is Ms. Schaff available? Yes, I see.
Hi,
Hello and welcome.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Cabot and Commissioners, for permitting me to speak tonight. My name is Cheryl Schaff. I'm a Menlo Park resident and member of the Menlo Park Climate Team, as is Commissioner Schmidt. And we produced the We Love Earth Festival on April 16th. I wanted to talk to you tonight on behalf of the Climate Team to share what we learned in producing the festival. Slide, please. Thank you. Can we get the full slide and not the sort of abbreviated one up there? Or can you guys see the whole thing? I can only see about two. There we go. Thank you very much. So the goal of the event was to reach out to and educate residents about our escalating climate crisis and solutions that exist now. Slide, please. Attendees were from every generation, but we were particularly successful in attracting young families who understand the scope of this climate crisis, will face decades of mitigation and adaptation, and want to do something. Slide, please. 25 different environmental organizations were eager to educate residents about their work promoting solutions and invite people to get involved. Slide, please. This nonprofit that I didn't know existed, called FabMo, each year rescues about 70 tons of discontinued designer samples like fabric, wallpaper, tile, and carpet, and makes them available to the community for reuse. Slide, please. Makers of clean transportation like EVs and e-bikes shared products and solutions to vehicle emissions. Slide, please. Manual clean transportation options were on display and demonstrated too. Slide, please. Professional chefs gave popular induction cooking demos, some using often discarded ingredients, and answered lots of questions from residents. Slide, please. Several state and local elected leaders got involved and let Recology test their recycling knowledge in the which bin game. Slide, please. We offered entertainment appropriate for everyone as well. Slide, please. Local teachers and students focused on the festival prior to April 16th by creating environmental art to be on display there. Slide, please. Hands-on art projects at the festival allowed attendees to create their own tributes to the planet. Slide, please. Everyone enjoyed appearances by some of Earth's magnificent creatures, like Sequoia the eagle. Slide, please. Adults and children were fascinated when they were able to get up close to an array of nature's beautiful reptile specimens. Slide, please. Asked to finish the sentence, "I will help the earth by," attendees wrote they would eat more vegetarian meals, avoid waste, buy local produce, take shorter showers, and be part of the circular economy. Slide, please. Again, our goal was outreach and education, so we were pleased with how many people we could engage. 725 people registered for the event electronically, 490 attended, 51 exhibitors brought 100 staff to man the booths, 25 volunteers supported us that day, 9 steering committee members were responsible for producing the event, 6 speakers shared, 35 student artists created art ahead of time for the event, and in total, 665 people were involved that day. As one of the volunteers asking hundreds of local businesses to display festival posters, I'm pleased to tell you it was a pretty easy sell. 98% of businesses said yes, often commenting, "We need to do something." Yes. Phil's Coffee took several signs from me, put them in their own stands, and placed them prominently in their shop. Slide, please. Our climate team concluded that the festival was a huge success, considering that 665 people were focused on sustainability that Saturday, that it was our first event, and that many competing Earth Day events took place just before or after. The festival modeled sustainable eating when lunch vendors sold more than 300 vegetarian or vegan items. Menlo Spark got dozens of residents' signatures on a petition calling for rapid transition from methane gas to clean all electric homes and buildings by 2030. Peninsula Clean Energy said our attendees were better informed and more motivated than people at other events. A great audience for promoting difficult action steps like heat pump water heaters. Slide, please. Producing the We Love Earth Festival and interacting with hundreds of residents about our climate emergency taught us 5 key things. First, powerful outreach is possible with collaboration, lots of people power, and funds, more than what volunteers alone can offer. 2, a broad contingent of informed residents and businesses is concerned about our climate emergency. 3, they want city leaders to talk about the severity of this crisis and take action now to meet CAP goals. 4, our community is looking for reasons to hope and strong local leadership in stoking that hope. And 5, residents expect the progressive leadership in tackling climate catastrophe that they saw when the City Council adopted the CAP. Slide, please. So we have one last question for you from our climate team. How can our team help you move City Council to designate significantly more staff, focus, and funds to meet our CAP goals? Because we don't feel that our team or our city is set up to succeed. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Schaaf. And so I'll open it up to the commission. Do you have any clarifying questions? Then in case there's public comment, we would hear that, and then we would have more hearty discussion. Yes, Commissioner London.
Yes, thank you for that presentation. I'm just curious, since gasoline accounts for about half of the carbon emissions, at least in our city, I wonder, beyond just talking about EVs, if there was any specific focus on gasoline and efforts to reduce its use.
Well, not on that particular day, there was not. We certainly can take on that project. I think we've considered our first effort to be working on moving from methane use in homes to electricity in homes. But it certainly is something that we would entertain. It's, of course, an important feature.
Yeah, I'm not discounting any of that, what you actually did. I think it's amazing. I just was curious. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, so actually, as I understand how we normally proceed, this is the part where we would just ask any clarifying questions about what may have been meant by a slide, and then we'll get into the deeper discussion about what was done at the festival, etc.
Sorry about that.
Or a public comment in case there's any. And so any other clarifying questions about what was presented? Okay, and seeing none, and Ms. Lucky, are there any public comments on this matter?
Thank you, Chair Cabot. So at this time, if there's any members of the public who are in attendance, you can use the hand raise feature next to your name, and I'll be able to unmute your microphone so you can speak for up to 3 minutes. If you're on a landline or a cell phone, you can press *9 to raise your virtual hand. So I do see one hand raised, Diane Bailey. So I have unmuted you. You should be able to speak now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Diane Bailey. I'm with Menlo Spark, local community climate action group. And I wasn't planning on speaking, but I was so moved by Cheryl's presentation. And I just wanted to note that a number of you commissioners were thought leaders and steering committee members and participants in the event. And that's part of what made it really great. And I wanted to thank the city for co-sponsoring the event. I think it was a wonderful representation of what this community can do when we pull together and collaborate. And there was so much interest within the community in participating in the event. It was really overwhelming. And so my question to EQC is, how can we keep that momentum sort of in line with Cheryl's question? What can we do with all this interest? How can we harness all of that interest and turn it into something helpful to you in the commission's objectives And if there's something that the climate team in Menlo Park can do to advance electric vehicles or measures that reduce gasoline, to Commissioner London's comment, we would love to work with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any other public comments?
At this time, if anyone would like to speak on the presentation regarding the Love the Earth Festival, you can raise your hand. I don't see any further hands raised. I return the meeting back to you, Chair Cabot.
All right, thank you. And so at this time, I'm going to open it up for more thorough discussion to the commission. And it's, that was a pretty interesting slide of the 5 lessons learned and a call to action by Ms. Schaff, that looking at ways to have the community be able to engage and assist different segments of city government and or subcommittees, committees, or the full commission. We need to start looking at how might we make progress together and overcome kind of the natural silos that exist in these formalized functions, but see what we can do to work together. I definitely enjoyed that day, April 16th, and got to volunteer at a little booth giving electrification advice, because I had electrified my home and got to talk about how I did it and share ideas with other people. There were other commissioners there as well, and also staff, including Ms. Lucky. So it was fun to see everyone out there on that sort of rainy, kind of interesting day. And so I'd like to open it up for anyone else to talk about these ideas raised or ideas that occur to you. Yes, Commissioner Elkins.
I'm just wondering if there I understand from what you just said that multiple commissioners and staff were in attendance, but was there an like Environmental Quality Commission booth or a subcommittee booth? Seems like if we were representing the city and telling citizens what the city is doing, that might have addressed one of the, I'm not saying, I'm not suggesting any fault. I'm just saying that it seemed like that the citizenry did want to know what the city is doing. And so it might be good to have a booth for the outreach subcommittee, perhaps, who would answer those kind of questions specifically about city efforts and city actions.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
But there wasn't something.
No, I
specifically
did
about
not
that.
notice a particular commission booth.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be great for the next time. So that leads me to the second part of my question. Is this planned to be an ongoing annual event?
Well, we don't actually know. We did have people who were there, exhibitors who were very happy that they were invited to come, both nonprofits and businesses that were selling products to residents to help them reduce emissions. So we haven't made any distinct plans yet to do it, but I think it's a pretty good possibility.
Great, thank you.
All right, and Commissioner Schmidt.
Sorry, let me get off mute there. Cheryl and Diane, good to see you. And Cheryl, thanks. That fantastic. It was good to relive a little bit of that through the photos. I guess my comment is more of a sort of to what Commissioner London was getting at, is I'd love to maybe see us get really concrete and have a proposal for collaboration with organizations like 350 and Menlo Spark, because I feel like the more the city tries to go alone when it comes to outreach and when it comes to EV transition and beyond gas and all the other pieces, it's not extending our resources. So I would make a proposal for us to come up with a concrete collaboration plan to work with the local and regional nonprofits and extend their reach, extend activities like the Earth Day Festival, and make it part of kind of one master plan that the city can be involved in. And I was just curious if other commissioners had feedback on that, but I'm hoping it's a real concrete kind of set of next steps that we can get involved in.
Yeah, so that does sound like the kind of thing that a subcommittee of the commission could easily work on and work with other groups to help enhance additional events like this. So that will play into our next agenda item coming up. Thank you for teeing that up when we talk about subcommittees.
Sounds great. And just a side note for Commissioner London, I'm actually the EV transition lead for 350. So the point about, you know, beyond gas and how we extend that, I will definitely raise my hand to keep working with you on that piece because it's an important one. So thanks, Chair Cabot.
And Commissioner Headley.
Thank you. Cheryl, thank you so much for that presentation. I'm bummed I missed this event. It sounds like it was really a inspiring time for the community. And it seems like there was a lot of interest in potentially doing it again. And I'm wondering if you had any specific requests, like if you were to be a part of doing this on an annual basis, do you have any specific requests from us or from the city to make that like a feasible thing? Or maybe even beyond, like if you had any specific things you'd like to see done between now and next mid-April.
Well, we will start a little bit earlier. We set our time frame to be kind of short. We started working on it in January to do it in April. So we will start earlier, and we will be, if we do it again, we will be asking the city to be a very close partner of ours. We will need funding. Funding would have made a big difference because it ended up costing quite a bit to have businesses and people enter the park. We could also use lobbying, depending on where we have it, you know, to help us waive some of those fees. But this event could have been more and bigger had we advertised it more, but we had a really tiny advertising budget. So I think there's a lot of help we could receive from the city, and a lot we could do together that would make it, and just people know more about it, more people involved. There were some issues that we had to deal with this year, like supply chain issues. So we literally couldn't get appliance dealers to come because there were no appliances. Hopefully some of those things will be resolved. But yeah, I think with the city's clout, we could do bigger and better things, definitely.
Cool, thank you.
Sure.
And Commissioner London.
I just really commend you guys for pulling that together. And I think it's just challenging on Earth Day when we have so many different cities in our area, all of whom want to do something for Earth Day. I'm not sure how many other events there were, but man, would it be nice if there was at least something kind of regional, right, where maybe Facebook would fund it, or you know, somebody could step in and just make it a bigger, like it's the event you come to. Although I know it's tricky because then people have to travel further distances and maybe they have to get into a car as opposed to ride their bike. So all that's tricky, but I do think you're on to something great, and that the coordination with other groups sounds fantastic.
Thank you, Commissioner London. Thank you. We started talking a little bit with Atherton because they did a separate event, and Palo Alto, which also did a separate event, but they decided they wanted to do something on their own. And I fully agree with you. I think we could have utilized our resources better had we pooled them. And that's something we should be looking at next time around. There definitely were people, I think, that had to choose, you know, which ones to come to. There were some a whole week before, like ours was the week before actual Earth Day on the 22nd. There were some right after. And I know some of our exhibitors, because I invited many of them myself, you know, said they were going to try to go to both. So it would have made, and that's hard for small businesses like bike shops and things like that. So it's difficult for them to get away. So I think we could have achieved a lot of benefits by collaborating a bit more with nearby communities. Yeah, I mean, that should be a part of our discussions early on.
All right, and Commissioner Schmidt.
Just a follow-on question. It's funny. I was thinking exactly the same thing as Commissioner London. Is if it's maybe a question for Rebecca as a historical perspective, is would the city consider being involved in that front and maybe reaching out to the surrounding, I don't know, 4 or 5 other cities and start earlier? So not put all the burden on 350 or Menlo Spark, but that could be a great role for the city if they would be willing to reach out to their counterparts in other cities. Is that something, Rebecca, that staff has done in the past or would be willing to consider maybe?
Thank you, Commissioner Schmidt. So historically, we haven't had a Earth Day event, and it's not to say that the city can't organize one, and we couldn't reach out. It just, I think it depends on timing and what projects we're working on and what the trade-offs are, and have what our budget looks like in order to accomplish that. And so, yeah, I think it's definitely something that the EQC can bring forward, as a recommendation to the city council, and we can look at it further and figure out how to make that work or how to collaborate a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, the event was terrific. My kids went to the event, and it was really fun. I think people came up with a lot of creative ideas, and Ori, our new management analyst, had a great idea of creating seedlings, and so we had a lot of kids stopping by ours to talk about the carbon cycle and climate action plan. So it definitely was a great educational component, and we were happy to participate and advertise through the channels that we have. So usually like our weekly digest next door, so we were able to push messages out there.
Yeah, and just to make sure I said that the right way, is I wasn't actually looking at it as something that the city would run or fund exclusively out of their budget. I feel like the city's probably uniquely positioned to reach out to other cities and see if we can join things up. So as opposed to the city running it, we could do a collaborative effort with the nonprofits. But the city reaching out to its other city counterparts could be a great way to make it more regional, like Commissioner London.
Yeah, I mean, we do have county groups that meet regularly with nonprofits, and so that might be a good topic to discuss on an annual basis, like in advance.
Okay.
I can kind of connect the dots offline if you'd like, how to
That sounds great.
move that forward, and with you as well, Cheryl, if you would like, and I know Tom, you're part of that group as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking that maybe that 350 umbrella organization that had several different local 350 groups that helped organize local events could help coordinate events and see if they want to coordinate. Anyway, there are ways that these can be coordinated that can be explored that don't necessarily use city staff to do the coordination. Because I think this was, what I saw being organized was done by a lot of, or a few hardy individuals contacting a lot of businesses and other organizations and nonprofits to rally them together. And so that could be done by an umbrella organization as well, maybe not the city. So I look forward to, hearing maybe if an outreach subcommittee takes a look at how they, what might be the interaction to assist and enhance these types of events. Be good to hear about those ideas they come up with. And thank you again, Ms. Sheff. I definitely appreciate those 5 lessons learned and your call to action that the community is wanting us to figure out how to move, and that we're hearing that time is short and that action has to start, and it's hard to find it at different levels of government. And so we have to create leadership where we can. So thank you so much to your organization and the others who put this together to bring citizens out and involve them in the process.
Of course, it was a pleasure. Thank you for letting me share with you tonight.
Okay, thank you. So now that brings us to our next item, which is item D3, and that is to discuss and confirm the number, purpose, and participants who want to be involved of the different commissioners who want to be involved in the Environmental Quality Commission's subcommittees as it relates to the commission's work plan. And there is an attachment. And so, Ms. Lucky, is there a presentation along with the attachment?
So there's no presentation on this item. It's really up for discussion for the commission. I can bring up the table if that's helpful.
Yes, the table would be helpful, and I'm seeing the attachment is our work plan. And so we have a couple of newer commissioners joining us. And so maybe I'll try to put it in perspective, and Ms. Lucky, maybe you can help me for the parts I leave out. But approximately each year, our commission develops a work plan, and that's the attachment in the agenda about the different areas we're going to focus on across the year. And the work plan goes to the city council and is approved or modified by the council and comes back to us as our approved work plan. And then we try to pursue it over the course of the year and try to make progress upon it. So that's our work plan. And then one of the activities that we do that helps make progress is to form subcommittees that are 3 members or fewer. And the reason it's 3 members or fewer is just so we are in compliance with the Ralph M. Brown Act that has us not having a quorum meet to discuss things that might advance policy without the public being able to watch. So we keep these subcommittees small and we work on the matters at hand and try to develop them. And then the subcommittees bring back proposals to be heard in public by the full commission, and including the public. So that's our normal procedure, but having these subcommittees allows a place where between our monthly meetings, the subcommittee may meet once or more times and can make significant progress drafting documents or proposals or initiatives. In fact, we had a committee drafting our climate action plan. And so we put together the full climate action plan that other cities sometimes pay a couple of $100,000 to do. We were able to do that through one of our subcommittees. So these can be very useful subcommittees, and they can make substantial customized progress on Menlo Park issues. Okay, and so Ms. Lucky has on the screen our page D312, which if you can see it in your packet, it may be easier to read there, but it's the list of 6 subcommittees. From the left, it's Building Decarbonization Subcommittee. The next one is Transportation Decarbonization. The third one is Climate Adaptation. The fourth is Climate Outreach. The fifth is Trees and Sustainable Initiatives. And the 6th on the right is Gas-Powered Leaf Blowers. So those are the subcommittees we have formed in the past, and so those are currently there, and there are members of some of the subcommittees. And with departing members, we may have lost, I do see at the bottom here, we have lost in one committee, we lost the only member. So if we were to keep the committee alive, we would need new volunteers. And then typically, I think the chair usually doesn't get too involved, too far into the subcommittees. So for example, I may back off to only one of the committees or 2. So see, I'm on 2 now. Anyway, I thought I would direct people's attention to this item and then open it up for discussion, and maybe some other commissioners can help inform us all about, what do you see as the role for the subcommittees and your interest level in participating in different ones. And then I think in this meeting, we also get to, hear who's interested and then vote to appoint them. So there may be competition since the committee can only hold up to 3 members, if 4 want to be on there, we would vote and come to a conclusion about what is the subset that is 3 that can be on that subcommittee.
And Chair Caput, if I may, before we get to the public comment, just to also kind of clarify some of the procedures. So we also typically like to kind of revisit the subcommittees annually just to make sure that they're still relevant. So you can create new ones or remove subcommittees. So I think there used to be like a climate action plan subcommittee, like a general overarching one, but it was kind of now split up into these different segments. So that's something to consider too. And just because a subcommittee might be disbanded doesn't necessarily mean the topic is off the table anymore. It just may be going through its process. And so ideally what we like from ad hoc subcommittees is, they're studying a certain matter. It's going to be brought forward to the Environmental Quality Commission at some point in the future for discussion, so they can kind of dive deeper, kind of write proposals. And I think a few of the commissioners that have been on the commission for a while, have experience on this, so they could probably speak to kind of how that works through a process.
And I just wanted to clarify one thing. I noticed in the top sentence of each of these committees, it does mention sometimes there's a subcommittee of 2 people. And I guess that is flexible. It can be 1, 2, or 3. Is that correct? Okay. And so don't feel constrained by the number here, except the number 3, and then we can vote to sort that out. Yeah, so let's see, at this point, I'd like to open this matter up to see if there are any public comments on the subcommittee structure of the EQC and the task of a kind of announcing our interest in participating in different subcommittees.
Thank you, Chair Cabot. So at this time, if there's any member attending the meeting who would like to speak on the topic of subcommittees, Environmental Quality Commission work plan, you can raise your hand using the raised hand feature that's next to your name, or you can press *9 if you're on a landline. So I don't see any hands raised at this time. So I return the meeting back to you, Chair Cabot. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lucky. So at this point, I'd like to open the matter up to fellow commissioners to start talking about, what do you think of this subcommittee structure and the work plan if you've had a chance to look at it. But tonight's meeting, I don't believe, is to redevelop the work plan. It's more to introduce you all to the subcommittees and to see if you can already identify subcommittees you want to join up with. And then, there may be flexibility too to join one later if you haven't decided yet and there still is room. But it could be that the way we can make more progress is by utilizing the subcommittee process to assist with making work products that can advance our efforts on sustainability and climate progress. So I'm opening it up to other commissioners, but I can't see anyone's hand raised. Let me switch to my participant view and then maybe okay. And let's see, Commissioner Schmidt.
Thanks, Chair Cabot. Actually, a question as well, just to make sure I understood. Are we going to first talk a little bit about the composition of the subcommittees and maybe suggest any adjustments to them and then volunteer for them, or because I did have a couple of suggestions on one of the committees, but I wasn't sure how you wanted to do that.
Good question. Yeah, I don't know how to volunteer other people for them, but I know how to self-volunteer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologies. I meant I had some suggestions on maybe changing the scope a little bit of
Yeah.
one of the committees, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to do that first or.
Yeah, let's actually, that sounds like a good first topic. Let's discuss the scope and breadth, or not breadth, but the scope of tasks that the subcommittees so far are interested in doing, as represented by that bullet point list on the screen. And so, Commissioner Schmidt, did you have content to share there?
Great, yeah. On the climate outreach subcommittee, I'm hoping maybe we can open the aperture a little bit on that and go back to the point I was making earlier about adding collaboration with CBO, community-based organizations, other cities, and also regional entities. So instead of making it outreach just for the city, by the city, let's leverage the resources around us in the community and also the region and in other cities. So maybe a sub bullet that talks about collaboration, and would be happy to send that to Rebecca and team as a suggestion. And then a second potential adjustment is really doubling down on student, school, and teacher outreach, because I think one, obviously there's a ton of interest in that group, and the second part of logic by recommending that is oftentimes when you get with young kids myself, oftentimes when you get students involved, then by default their parents are kind of involved as well. So making the outreach have a special bullet in there about focusing on schools, districts, and students and teachers. So those are two recommendations.
Thank you. Those are good points. And I do believe that we have in the past allowed collaboration with other entities through the subcommittee process. And so that is a thing that I think can happen. So for example, the outreach committee could be collaborating with non-governmental entities or governmental entities working on that kind of thing. So I think there's room to be doing that, and that's kind of, the subcommittee is the more flexible entity out of the full body of the commission that's able to do those types of things.
I'd recommend we consider it for others as well, Chair Cabot. I mean, if I think about the trees and sustainable initiatives, Canopy is a good potential collaborator, and obviously, you know, the city's already working them, so that might be a line item we potentially include on.
Right, and I did not mean to limit it to the one example I raised, but it applies across all of those subcommittees.
I did it first, yeah, but I think you brought up a really good point. It doesn't have to be limited. I think it's a great point. Yeah, you could put it across all.
Right, and then I see a hand raised by Vice Chair Headley.
Well, I have two points. One is a question from what Commissioner Schmidt just raised. Do we want to formally add some bullets around collaboration with other organizations, or does that seem unnecessary? And then the second thing I was going to share was my areas of interest.
Yep, good question. I guess I've assumed it was always fine to do that kind of collaboration, but I don't know. I don't know if the staff has an opinion about it. They've probably seen the process longer than I have. They may have ideas. And hearing none, I see Commissioner Vice. Oh, excuse me. Is that Ms. Lucky?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm trying to see if it might be good for us to switch to more of a Word document, but if you could repeat your question again, so that way we can see the changes, but then I can answer your question too.
My question is really about how formal are the descriptions of the subcommittees? Like, can each subcommittee, add a bullet about collaboration and have that be fine, or do we need to make it a formal process with a motion here to formalize the charter for each of these subcommittees?
You can make the revisions here regarding the scope. So I think that's definitely doable. I think maybe what would be helpful is kind of figuring out like where does that where does that lead to as far as a recommendation to the EQC or the city council for some action to be taken? Because there's nothing, that prevents, three of you working together on something, but I just want to keep that in mind as kind of the line of sight.
Right. So the normal process is, say that the 1, 2, or 3 subcommittee members may work with other collaborators, and then the subcommittee members make a presentation to the full body of the commission with their recommendation, and the full body of the commission makes a vote on whether they want to make that recommendation to city council. So it is a process of the subcommittees kind of doing the hard work and the detailed work, and then bringing it to the full commission for a discussion and decision, and airing in front of the public, and then off to the council for their consideration.
Cool, thank you. I am primarily interested in the outreach subcommittee and also the trees and sustainable initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Commissioner Elkins has her hand raised.
Thank you. Yeah, at this point, I think I would like to move, or at least explore the idea of disbanding gas powered leaf blowers subcommittee. I think that the task that required by that subcommittee has been fulfilled, even though that we haven't reached the end of that process as sustainability manager. Like you said, it's kind of going through its normal course now, and if there's any need for further action on the part of the commission, then I'll still be part of that commission or committee, but I don't think we need to have that on the list anymore. I just wanted to query regarding that last question about making changes to the descriptions of the subcommittees. You don't think that that's going to send us back to the council for them to approve those changes?
Yeah, so as long as it aligns with your work plan, I think that's kind of the key aspect, because the city council approved your annual work plan, and subcommittees may be helping to carry out some of those action items in the work plan. So that's a great point, Commissioner Elkins. I mean, to kind of maybe make sure it's connected.
Right. But they didn't, when they approved the work plan, where the subcommittees were not designated as part of that work plans.
Right. Yeah, and that's okay. So, I mean, as long as it's in line, again, to accomplish something in the work plan, and that probably elevates kind of what I'm trying to say too, is that, we want to see a line of sight from the work plan, what the subcommittees are doing, and how that's helping to accomplish the work plan that was approved by city council.
Great. And so, yeah, I would like to throw my hat in the ring also for the trees subcommittee, which I am currently the only member of anyway. And we'll go, I'll wait to see how that, actually, let me just state my preference to sort of stay on the less technical end of the work, and volunteer for outreach, adaptability, sustainability, but not so much with electrification and decarbonization subcommittees. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Vice Chair Headley.
I'm complete. I think it's over to Commissioner Schmidt now.
Was that me or you, Nancy? Sorry, who's up?
I didn't have my hand raised, but I saw that you did.
I may have a lag. I thought I saw your hand raised, but and now I see no hands raised.
Okay. I think it was, sorry, this is Commissioner Schmidt. My hand was definitely up, but happy to wait to be recognized.
Yes, Commissioner Schmidt.
Yeah, two quick things. One is to the point that Rebecca was making, I hopefully we can definitely at least document them in the descriptions, assuming that they align with the work plans, just for future commissioners, making sure that those points are actually captured in these descriptions. Kind of embeds them in the working flow for future commissioners and future teams. And then just carrying on the tradition, I definitely would have an interest in trees, outreach, and transportation and decarbonization. Those are the three that I'm hoping to participate in.
All right, thank you. And are there other commissioners who found interests that they want to explore through the subcommittees? Yep, and seeing Commissioner London.
Yes, I need to lower my head. Okay. Yeah, so unfortunately, I can't volunteer for any subcommittees at this time. I'm undergoing some changes in various aspects of life, including work, and I am just not sure that I'm going to be able to commit to that. So I'm in a kind of limbo period right now, but we'll be able to get back to you in the upcoming weeks.
All right, thank you. Yep, so that definitely expresses that other idea that you have some time to take a look at these committee opportunities, subcommittee opportunities, to see what strikes your fancy for where you would like to dig in. I think it's only when we have too many members that we need to make a decision to narrow it down. All right, and so are there any other commissioners interested at this time in announcing their interest in particular subcommittees? Okay, and I see no hands raised. And so then if staff was able to record those commissioner interests, I think we can add them to the current draft of the table. And I believe there's also a kind of a spreadsheet that where you look at on a Google Doc where we can keep it listed.
Okay, so it looks like there's a commissioner on all of the subcommittees, and then there is a request to remove the leaf
gas leaf
lower.
blower.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the addition to the climate outreach scope, is that look correct? So regional collaboration and focus on student, teacher, school outreach. It is consistent with the work plan. I did look, there is a bullet point on communication of the city's climate action plan.
Yes, so I'd like to check with Commissioner Schmidt. Does that look like it covers the idea you had raised?
Two adjustments. Thank you, Chair Cabot. One is, Rebecca, maybe if we could capture, it's both regional collaboration and collaboration with local nonprofits. And then I think Chair Cabot had a really great idea that that same point could easily span all of the other commissions as well. So like the trees would be a regional collaboration with, like, say, a canopy, or transportation would be a regional and nonprofit collaboration. So that first bullet could span all committees.
And I do believe informally that's the way the subcommittees have operated in the past, is that interacting with the collaborators has been a method of advancing the work products.
That's fantastic.
Okay, and so if there's no other discussion of this item at this time, I would just leave it up to my fellow commissioners to consider joining into any of those subcommittees that strike your fancy as a way to further enhance the city's efforts in making work products that can be useful for achieving our environmental goals. And so that concludes item D4 and on our agenda, and we move to item E.
Oh, pardon, Chair
yes.
Cabot.
Mhm.
So I think it might be good to have an action on this versus consensus, if
I
that's
see.
possible.
Yeah, so then would somebody like to make a motion to make the adjustments that we've discussed, which included the elimination of the gas-powered leaf blower subcommittee and then the addition of the certain commissioners to the certain subcommittees? And I can't, my vision isn't able to see the list there.
So yeah, it looks like we're adding Commissioner Schmidt to the Transportation Subcommittee, because I can't see the other one, but I think I know the order.
Yeah, and I also
And
heard
then
in the,
we're adding Commissioner Schmidt and Headley to the outreach along with yourself, Chair Cabot. And then Elkins is going to remain on urban canopy and sustainable initiatives. And then we're adding commissioners. Oh yes, and then thank you,
And-
Lori. Adding some additional scope to the climate outreach subcommittee for regional collaboration and collaboration with local nonprofits. And it's noted that this can apply to all the subcommittees in trying to communicate the goals of the climate action plan with a focus on student, teacher, and school outreach. And then just to clarify, so we're adding Headley and Schmidt also to the urban canopy and sustainable initiatives and removing the gas powered leaf blower policy subcommittee as that's in progress, and council did direct to work on that. So is there a motion? Did I?
yeah, thank you for summarizing that. And so I'll put it out to the commission. Would somebody like to make a motion to make those changes? Commissioner
I
London,
so move.
and seconded by Vice Chair Headley. And so we have a motion and a second to make those adjustments to our subcommittee actions and roster with the flexibility to accept additional commissioners joining into the subcommittees up until there are 3 total in future weeks. And so
I'll take roll call.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Elkins,
Aye.
Commissioner London,
Yes.
Commissioner Cabot,
Aye.
Commissioner Headley,
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. And so that brings us to item E, the reports and announcements section. And so first off, I'd like to ask staff if there are any staff reports or announcements from staff about items for the commission.
Thank you, Chair Cabot. Yes, I do have some updates. So let's see. Last night on Tuesday night, which is last night, Block Power, the resolution to support Block Power as a provider in providing electrification services in Menlo Park was approved by the City Council unanimously. So that's great. And so now we're working on the next steps in our journey with Block Power. And having a lot of great meetings and conversations. It did get some press as well. so far. So that was really great. And they're looking to electrify at least 15 buildings this year, and then 100 next year. And then for the remainder years, 1,000 buildings per year. So it's a great accomplishment. Thank you to Commissioner Evans and Diane Bailey from Menlo Spark, and Mayor Nash as well for kind of continually to move it forward and try to find different pathways to collaborate with Block Power. And I think we're also looking at different funding aspects, and I know Menlo Spark is doing that as well, but we are also a finalist to submit a final proposal for a grant of up to $1 million or $1 million. And so working with Menlo Spark on that and preparing a proposal that would support Block Power and mostly low to moderate income building owners to be able to electrify. So kind of paying for that cost differential to electrify, and so it doesn't become a burden for those most vulnerable. And last night, the City Council also reviewed their budget. So they had a public hearing. And so there'll be another meeting June 28th. I'll check my calendar here. Yeah, June 28th, where they will finalize the budget. So the budget includes our operating budget. So that's kind of like the services, like, you know, our staff positions, contractor support, kind of the ongoing annual. We also have our capital improvement plan that where we have our climate action plan implementation money in and funds in. And typically we get $100,000 each year for that. So what I gathered from the council meeting last night was that there was still strong support to fund the climate action plan. Particularly, we did add to, and I'll let Lori speak to this, some capital improvement projects that will help our organization reach carbon neutral. And so Ori will speak to that, but they also did discuss the resiliency position. So the Environmental Quality Commission back in October, it was a staff recommendation, and then it was also recommended by the EQC to include in the next budget cycle a resiliency position, and that position would really work on kind of education, like long range planning of how this community is going to thrive and survive in the face of climate change, because we already are experiencing effects, even though we're trying to reduce it through active mitigation measures. Adaptation's a kind of a next level item, and it's a fairly new concept for local government. I'm starting to see like sprinkles of kind of resiliency positions pop up in local government because of the wildfires, particularly in Santa Cruz County, and, you know, connecting that to emergency preparedness, but also just letting people know, you know, how do you clean up ash after a wildfire, and kind of what does a city do to kind of protect residents that are vulnerable during very unhealthy air conditions, the extreme heat kind of factors, the mental health issues that also come along with extreme heat. And so this position would potentially look at that as kind of the long range, be the connector between what all the departments are doing, because we certainly are working heavily on, you know, protecting the Bellhaven neighborhood and other critical infrastructure from sea level rise. So that's been our primary focus, but that scope is starting to grow as far as adaptation. So the council needed a little bit more information about it because it is such a new position. They were kind of curious as to, you know, what other cities, do other cities have this position? How big are the sustainability divisions that address this? So they wanted some more clarifying aspects that I'm working on for the meeting on June 28th. But it seemed like a maybe. It was put in the maybe category for the resiliency position. So with that, I'll hand it off to Ori.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lucky. I did skip over an item, but before I go backwards to one of our actions, I did want to commend and thank staff for all their hard work putting together the analysis and the structure, also for the Block Power arrangement with the city. And I also think that sounds like a great idea to look at the creation of a resiliency position to assist the community in the transition that they need to do to be adapting to the changes that we can't avoid as part of climate change, even though we're trying to accelerate our actions to reduce the problem as we should. But thank you so much for those reports. We will come back to reports item E, but we have to go make a little presentation and get the commission's comments and suggestions to our quarterly report to the City Council, item D4. And in that quarterly report, we go about 4 times a year to the council to let them know what the commission has been doing and share with them our actions and progress, and sometimes ask for their guidance about priorities that they may have. And so at this point, I'd like to see if staff is able to present on the screen the PowerPoint of the quarterly report. Thank you. So Vice Chair Headley and myself worked with Rebecca and Ori to develop the following quarterly report. And so we'll present it to the full commission and get your feedback on ideas you'd like to change or add or subtract out of this. Okay, and so this will go to City Council probably in July. So we give them a quick agenda showing that we're going to talk about reviewing our activities in the past and that what community concerns we've been hearing through public comments, and then seeing if they have additional guidance for us. Next. And we let them know the changing body of the commission, and thanking a couple of our prior commissioners who've rolled off, and welcoming 3 new commissioners who are here today. Thank you for joining us. Next. So we'll try to give them a climate science update, and that is that the IPCC scientists and International Energy Agency have agreed that the current fossil fueled machinery's normal emissions are pushing the 2°C global temperature limit. And so just the existing machinery out there pushes us to 2 degrees, and there's no climate space below 2 degrees for anything newly installed. And so that identifies kind of an action gap that we're finding is we have good goals, but our actions and policies are not up to the task yet of meeting the goals. And so that was similar to a point raised earlier by Ms. Schaff, that we need to be doubling our efforts on these types of things. And we've used up the waiting time. So I'll be presenting that to the council about that opinion, or a scientific opinion, and sharing that with them. And so those implications are that we have to pivot to electric alternatives because of the clean electricity available here in our city, and demonstrate the carbon reduction in new buildings and in existing buildings. And that we would need a replace before burnout type of ordinance or policy if we were to stay under 2 degrees rise. So we've kind of used up all the spare waiting time. And so the actions have to become, more substantial in order to bend the emissions curve downward, so that the accumulated emissions don't exceed the level that pushes us past 2 degrees. So we would also be looking at other viable intervention points. And then I'll go ahead and advance. And so Menlo Park, our climate action plan, the CAP, it closed the ambition gap. It was ambitious enough because that goal to reduce our emissions essentially 90% by 2030 is adequate. If that was happening everywhere, that would keep the Earth to about a 1.5 degree Celsius rise as called for in the Paris Accord. But we've got the good goal, but we still have an action gap and an achievement gap. The action gap is we have not yet implemented the policies or passed the policies that would get us there. We're just relying on voluntary efforts, and the voluntary efforts are relatively small, on the order of 1 or 2% of the level needed to be getting us there. And so we need to be looking at how to close those gaps. Next. Next. So we just refresh their memory that we do have our climate action goal set to be net zero by 2030 through a 90% reduction in the emissions from energy sources, et cetera, and a 10% amount of sequestration of CO2 through new forestation and other activities that would take carbon out of the air. And so our climate action plan has a number of activities going. We have the first 6 items going, but there are more in the climate action plan that would be needed to get on target with meeting the goals. The first 6 items we talk about are not enough to do it. So we need to be looking at what to introduce. And that EQC members have been doing some of the outreach needed. So we've been working with the community. It's related to Ms. Schaff's earlier presentation. All right. And then Commissioner Evans, who isn't here tonight, but she's been very helpful in assisting the city staff and council in developing the city's low-income housing electrification project. That project also leading to the block power agreement signed, or not signed, but approved last night. Commissioner London has been assisting with the Beyond Gasoline initiative. And then there has been a follow-on effect where California and the state of Washington, as 2 examples, are adopting building codes to encourage or require electrification, similar to our 2019 Menlo Park REACH code. So the kind of thing that we were the first city to do by following staff's recommendation to simplify the REACH code into just essentially truncating the ability to install fossil-fired equipment in new construction. That type of policy, that simple policy, is being adopted by other states like Washington and partially adopted by California in their upcoming code cycle. Next. So in partnering with leaders earlier this year, we had a presentation by ICLEI, a international group of what are the environmental initiatives in a race to zero emissions thing. And so they have an effort that we joined, and I believe they created kind of an advanced group of cities who are trying to get to the zero goal, like Palo Alto, that will be able to join that group. Next. Okay, so this one's got a lot of words on it. It was from a motion that we passed in March about the new buildings REACH code and the existing buildings REACH code. So this is the year in the 3-year code cycle where cities develop their REACH codes that can go above and beyond the statewide base code. And so we are looking to consider that we return to council for additional existing building electrification measures, along with new building construction electrification measures, and that these things need to advance and go further than we've done before. And in number 2, we talk about A through H there, the specific measures to be added to the proposed existing building measures to move us towards our goals. And so there are ideas like having electrification projects be required when people are replacing an existing air conditioner or installing a new air conditioner, that it be a 2-way air conditioner that called a heat pump that can heat you in the winter or cool you in the summer. And that they do other electrification, like replacing gas burning water heaters when they burn out with these electric efficient heat pump water heaters. And to have these types of recommendations on the major gas using appliances that burn out in a home, so that building permits are issued for the electric replacement versions. And that because some of those conversions can be expensive because of the various issues in the supply chain and the workforce, there can be a consideration of in lieu fees, and those would be fees a stressed applicant might pay that would be lower than the cost of doing the project, and give them a way to not do the project if it was financially not economic for them and they made that case. So we want the council to consider the collection of in lieu fees that could be collected and used to assist other categories of customers in doing their electrification. We also looked at asking for parking lot alterations when those were happening, to require electric vehicle charging be part of parking lot alterations. So if they're repaving a parking lot, to do the trenching and install the conduits and wires that can electrify the parking lot to charge the electric vehicles at the parking lot, and to require 100% EV charging equipment be installed for new construction, including for multifamily buildings, that each multifamily parking spot be supplied in new construction with a low power level 2 charger. Also to streamline the permitting process, and I know staff is working on that as well, trying to make sure there's clarity for building permit applicants, and to be considering hardship exemptions when a project just for some reason had technical reasons it couldn't move forward or was economically unable to move forward. So that would be considered as well. And then to clarify the alteration of remodeling and additions, to make it more of a single number trigger instead of a 2-number fraction, which is more debatable whether it's a certain percent of what's going on. You need a numerator and denominator, but just having it a single number, like 200 square feet of new construction activity or addition or remodel, that be a level of activity that requires electrification on the project. And then to consider a replace on burnout or end of life requirement for appliances burning out. And those types of things, because of the supply shortage, could be deferred a year or two. Say they could pass the ordinance in 2022 to be effective in 2023 or 2024. So they can pass it one time and have it phase in over a year or two. And then to consider implementing a long-lasting ordinance like a municipal code adoption, as opposed to using the 3-year cycle on the building code, which has us return each time through this process. So that might be a way to ease our implementation as well. And next. So the important actions we're seeing coming up in front of council for 2022 are the adoption of electrification reach codes as our current reach codes expire at the end of this year. And so this summer and fall, we expect to have staff bringing proposals to council, and hopefully the EQC will be voting on their recommendations, EQC recommendations on what to adopt. New construction reach codes are needed again. And reach codes are needed on remodels, additions, and they're needed to prevent the costly installation of fossil-fired equipment that probably can't get gas if we're going to meet statewide targets. There just won't be enough carbon budget to supply methane to these devices in the future. And next. So this next slide talks about some of the concerns we've heard from the public, often voiced through those 3-minute public comments that we listened to. And so we've been hearing about climate change and a high level of urgency and concern regarding the climate equity. Definitely climate change is unfair to different groups, especially young and unborn groups who will face much more climate change than people like myself, who've had a good 6 decades without much of it. So I've been the beneficiary of quite a bit of gentle climate, but I need to pay attention to what young people are facing, and we as leaders need to work towards meeting those needs. We need to look at ways that we discussed earlier today, in fact, of inclusion of volunteers outside of commissioners to help Menlo Park address these many challenges and do these many forms of outreach needed to help the community understand the transition needed. And we've heard concerns regarding gas-powered leaf blowers. And we've heard interest in dine-in establishments being required to use reusable foodware, so metal silverware as an example, instead of disposable, compostable foodware. And we continue, as always, in a tree city like ours to hear the public's affection for heritage trees and the urban canopy, and we want to keep it robust and healthy. Next. And so then we open it up to the council to provide their guidance to us on what is the role, any ideas they see for the role of the commissions and pursuit of the CAP goals, and to consider any ideas they may want to express on pursuing CAP items listed there. And next. Yep. So that's the draft of what we're proposing to discuss with the council at an upcoming meeting, to let them know kind of where we are, what we're looking at, what we're working on. And so at this point, if we can, I think we can open this up to any, now it would just be clarifying questions about what I said, and then we'll have public comment, and then we'll open it up for full commission discussion. So if there are any questions about what I said, go ahead and raise your hand, and I am trying to. I don't see any clarifying questions coming in from commissioners on my screen. But I do see there, it appears there may be a public member with a question. Okay, now I see other fellow commissioners, and I see you again. Does anyone have any clarifying questions about what I said before we let the public share their thoughts? Okay, and seeing none. Ms. Lucky, are there members of the public who would wish to comment on this?
Yes, there is, Chair Cabot. And just a reminder, if you'd like to make public comments, you can use the raised hand feature next to your name, and I'll be able to unmute you. If you're on a landline, you can press *9, and I'll also be able to see your hand raised and unmute you as well. So with that, we have one public commenter right now, John McKenna. And I have unmuted you, Mr. McKenna, and you may speak. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone, and just huge amounts of appreciation to all the commissioners and the staff for everything you're doing. I can't emphasize any more the urgency of this situation, so I applaud you all for pushing City Council as much as you possibly can. On the REACH code, just an idea that popped into my head. I don't know if this already exists or if it's already being in some form or another somewhere else, but we talk about a burnout ordinance, which I fully support. And I feel like that's the stick. And maybe there could be a carrot for members of the community that are willing to replace sooner than burnout, to incentivize people to take action sooner. So maybe there's some way to incorporate that into the policy or the code. Also, the idea of an end of flow date for gas to buildings. I don't know if that's already part of the action plan or not, or if that's something that's been considered, but I would be fully supportive of that. And lastly, I'll just say that I fully support a ban of leaf blowers, gas-powered leaf blowers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna. And I do see another hand raised. Let me... And the next speaker is Diane Bailey. And I've unmuted you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll keep this brief because I spoke earlier. I just want to say thank you to Chair Cabot. That looks like a wonderful report. And I think it's really great that you're updating the council and the public on the state of the science, because I think most folks are not aware of the most recent reports and how serious things are. So that's extremely helpful. And I fully support the recommendations that came from EQC back in March on the REACH codes. I think they're completely appropriate and hope to see those move forward. And +1 to all of John's comments. So thanks.
All right, thank you, Ms. Bailey. Okay, and are there any other public comments?
Last call for public comment. I do not see any hands raised. I return the meeting back to you, Chair Cabot.
All right, thank you. And so now we can open it up to the full commission to make your suggestions for ways we can adjust the presentation and message to the council to let them know what we're up to, what's been happening, and to solicit their guidance. And so, is there any commission discussion? Yes, Commissioner Schmidt.
Thanks, Chair Cabot. That's a great report out, and I guess I had a question about. I was hoping to ask a clarifying question. Then I had a question about forward-leaning work around a particular issue. You did say this was a quarterly report that went to City Council?
That's right.
Oh, perfect. So my question is, there's based on our last meeting, I had spent some time with Catherine at the executive director at Canopy, and Scott Marshall, a previous member of the EQC, talking about the master forest plan, the urban forest master plan, and some of our comments about that taking a long time and how do we accelerate it. And I think, Commissioner Headley and I were particularly looking for ways to say, could we accelerate that? So I had some initial coffee and discussion with them about, could we leverage their expertise? Are there other templates? They referenced East Palo Alto's plan that was just implemented, and that they'd be happy to partner with us to maybe accelerate that timeframe. So I guess the question is, would we want some of that background work to be fairly well formed before we bring it to council and come with a recommendation, or could we preview to council that we're kind of looking at this in partnership with community partners? What's the best way to maybe make them aware, but tell them we're not very far along yet, but we'll eventually be bringing it in front of them?
Yeah, so I think I could add in a bullet point in there about that preliminary discussions are happening with Canopy and with an interest in looking at other cities' urban forest master plans to see how ours may be accelerated. So
that'd be great. And
so that would express kind of the gist of your idea.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Definitely want to bring all that in front of the EQC. It was essentially just a one coffee meeting, just getting to them. So it was, we're not getting too in front of the horse is not getting too in front of the cart yet. We'll definitely work through that process, and I'll spend a little more time with Scott next week. So
right, I think given the flexibility of subcommittee actions, that all that's within bounds, and so it's it'd be just alert, making the council aware that that's what one of the ideas that the subcommittee has.
I'm happy to loop and the other members who are part of that committee, if you want to join that conversation. I'm trying to set up some time with Scott next week. So definitely some excitement, and there's a ton of learning from Canopy about how we could accelerate this. So
I would like to be involved with that too, if possible. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, and any other discussion? Okay, and seeing none, is there a motion to approve that report going to council with the addition of a line item about tree subcommittee interest in meeting with Canopy and we're looking at other nearby cities' urban forest master plans.
Hey,
Okay,
Chair
so
Cabot,
Vice
I
Chair-
actually have a question. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand earlier. Can I ask?
Yes, please.
When we created the deck with Mr. Paz and Ms. Lucky, there was, it seemed like there were a few things missing from this version of the deck. There was like that one slide with the graph about the different CAP action items and the people on staff that were associated with that. So I was wondering, was that a deliberate decision to not use those additions, or was it maybe missed?
Let's see, yeah, on my part, I did not deliberately delete it, although I might not have used a version that had it as content. So perhaps your suggestion is that we include that it was kind of a matrix of the several CAP action areas 1 through 6, and the several departments and or positions working on those tasks, just so the council could see that we have these CAP items and these positions are working on those items.
Yeah, it felt like a helpful addition.
Okay, and so I'll ask staff if they can create or find that slide to put back in. I'm sorry, I misplaced it. And let's see, I thought I saw another hand up. It's gone now. Any other discussion before asking for a motion? Yes, Mr. Paz.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, there was an additional slide that had an outline, which is bullet points of the actions since January of this year. So that was another slide. Are you wanting to see that one as well, or just the matrix for the CAP action items?
I was thinking of just the matrix for the CAP action items, and I've forgotten what that other slide would include, because we did have two, I think it took about 2 slides to go through the actions that we have done so far this year. Okay. One was that a very dense slide I spent all the time on about buildings and the reach code. So I kind of forgot what slide is you're thinking of.
Oh, it was just an outline that showed it in fewer words as it bullets. But thank you for the clarification. We'll include the matrix. I mean, provided the motion passes, we will include just the matrix. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we have a motion?
I can make a motion that we adopt the chair's report with the changes that have been indicated.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right, seconded, moved by Elkins, seconded by Schmidt. And any discussion? So it sounds like we're ready to move to a vote.
Great, thank you, Chair Cabot. So the motion is to approve the chair's quarterly report to the City Council, which is tentatively scheduled for the end of July. So I'll go by the order that's on my screen. Commissioner Schmidt, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Elkins?
Aye.
Commissioner London?
Aye.
Commissioner Headley?
Aye.
And Commissioner Lynn?
Aye.
And Chair Cabot?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry for that, skipping that action item before launching into our first good set of reports by Sustainability Manager Lucky. Where she was able to update us on quite a bit of staff activity over the past month. So that was good to hear. Are there any additional staff activity reports to share with us before we open it up for commissioners?
Yeah, so maybe 2 additional items before Ori goes. So for the REACH codes, I think we're still waiting on the Bay Area REACH Code Initiative group, which includes 3 Bay Area counties kind of working on model existing building REACH codes for electrification. So I think from what I understand, it's going to be going before the PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy Board, sometime this month. That's tentatively scheduled. So hopefully we'll start to see some movement in July. It's going to be a little bit difficult to kind of push anything forward for implementation by January 1 for existing buildings, but we can certainly take a look at what's coming out and kind of figure out the timeline and bring it forward to the EQC, as well as just to kind of probably go through all of the kind of recommendations we talked about earlier this year. So just wanted to highlight that. And then I also was able to, and I think Chair Cabot, you've alluded to this probably many moons ago, and trying to maybe collaborate with PG&E on when they're having to upgrade a gas line. You know, is it an opportunity to potentially electrify potential neighborhoods? So I was able to finally have a conversation with PG&E. It sounds like they have a team of folks that can kind of help prepare data and information on what that might look like. But it is very early, like no one's done this kind of work before. So just kind of working through that process and seeing what might come of it. So that was pretty hopeful, and I think it connects really well into our collaboration with Block Power, and kind of even looking at our future policies or programs going forward, and kind of how can we work together and kind of find funding or repurpose funding from this CPUC to kind of make that happen. And so it was a pretty good meeting. So very hopeful. So it's something we can look forward to.
Well, thank you for updating us on that item and taking those actions to initiate that conversation with PG&E. Through the buildings subcommittee, I'll talk with you about it as part of a subcommittee matter. But I'm very excited on the idea of being able to do something that helps PG&E not invest the money that wouldn't be needed on a short-lived type project. And then also, I was in an earlier meeting today related to your earlier item about REACH codes, where the representatives from East Bay Clean Energy and SVCE and Peninsula Clean Energy, they all said that they have, they're willing to share what they have so far on these REACH codes. So they haven't gotten it all the way to the board, but they understand cities are frustrated and needing to take a look at the drafts that are developed so far. So they are, those staffs are ready to share those drafts of the kind of REACH code ordinance alternatives that they've been exploring. Okay, and then and now any reports from commissioners, reports and updates of things that you'd like to share with the commission and the public? Yes, Mr. Paz.
Thank you, Chair Cabot. Just before we go to the commissioners, I did want to wrap up the staff reports and announcements with an update on CAP 5. So that's the action to eliminate fossil fuel use within municipal operations by 2030. So we have been making progress toward that goal on a number of fronts. So with respect to city fleet vehicles, there was a Tesla police department Tesla pilot that was approved by the council, and those vehicles have been ordered and are currently being outfitted. And we have our CIP team, capital improvement program team, working on infrastructure projects to be ready to have charging available for those vehicles at city facilities, and then also with partnerships potentially in the community. so that we will be able to charge the vehicles that we have. We're also looking at a wider decarbonization plan and brought a consultant on board last year, Optany, to work through that. And so that's making substantial progress. And we have been working in parallel with a facility conditions assessment consultant that has now completed all of the FCA, facility condition assessment reports for the city facilities. And so all of that information is being factored into the decarbonization plan, which will inform our future projects related to electrification and then energy conservation measures for the city facilities. And at the same time, we're exploring opportunity to electrify the Burgess Pool, which is the largest single contributor to our emissions across all facilities. And provided the budget that was presented to the council, I guess yesterday evening, is approved. We are in a good position to begin design and engineering of that project and move forward to take advantage of some incentive programs to help with electrifying the pool. And with that, I conclude my CAP 5 update. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's very good to be hearing all that progress on CAP 5, and CAP 5 is really pursuing the leadership position of the city to be electrifying its fleet of buildings and vehicles as it's asking the community to do the same. And so it's good to hear you've got things going in all those sectors, and that's kind of nice progress there. Thank you. On the Burgess Pool, I'm curious, are they looking at maybe an alternative also including ground source heat pumps, or just traditional air source heat pumps that grab heat from the nearby air?
At this time, we don't have anything formalized as part of our preliminary investigations. We have been looking at what is being done at the city of Brisbane, and so they, I believe, are using air source heat pumps. But it is early enough in the process that we can evaluate additional items during the preliminary planning phase.
Excellent. Yeah, there's also sometimes opportunities exchanging heat, excess heat from buildings that need to be cooled that can be used to warm the pool and the shower water and all that. So a little bit of exchange between them. But good. I'm glad you guys are looking at all that. And now back to the commission members, in case commission members have any reports to make of activities that they've been involved with and want the public and commission to know about regarding sustainability and environmental quality. All right, and Ms. Lucky.
I'm so sorry. I also forgot to mention that we've released the leaf blower, gas-powered landscaping equipment survey. So we were looking for specifically landscapers to respond to the survey. So it's still going to, I think it's going till June 23rd, I want to say. So if you know any landscapers, and we can resend the link. So I believe Candace did send the link out to all of you. And if you didn't get it, we can resend it as well. But we want to kind of form a policy that's going to be enable an equitable transition and make sure people have enough time to transition as well. So we've been getting really good feedback just from our own contractors and kind of where they are in their ability to kind of transition. So, I mean, we're using some level of electric leaf blowers, our contractors are as well. So, but also kind of widening that scope to see what we could do with other gas powered equipment, such as kind of weed whackers and other things that do create a lot of noise and pollution.
All right, thank you. It's good to hear about that progress too on the survey. And so I look forward to hearing results. Okay, and then I think I saw a commissioner hand raised. Yes, Commissioner Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair Cabot. I was hoping that in a future meeting, we could potentially get an update from an organization that I've been working with called CALI, which is the California Environmental Literacy Initiative. and maybe hear about some of their work that they've been doing to create a statewide white paper to bring more funneling of grants and monies and attention and activity statewide for both green jobs and widening environmental literacy with students and stakeholders. And it's something that I think Menlo Park, given the leadership position that Menlo Park plays in the environmental work, I think there's a potential to maybe be highlighted in that work, go for some grants. But I think the request is in a future meeting, we potentially get an update from Cali, hear about their work, and talk about ways that Menlo Park could get involved.
Yes, thank you. That sounds like a good thing to maybe explore through a subcommittee and then bring it to the chair for consideration as an agenda item. And also it seems like it could be related to outreach efforts, and seeing how we might use environmental literacy efforts to improve our outreach. All right, any other commissioner reports? Oh, yes, Commissioner London.
I think I told the commission last time I was on the call about the heat map that my nonprofit is developing. The nonprofit's called Cultura. The heat map is a zip code level look at gasoline consumption. So it looks at where the highest concentrations of big gasoline users are within California by zip code. And then we added in a whole bunch of other demographics so that we're going to start to be able to make some predictions and use AI to reach some conclusions about where these folks are, their income levels, their work, why they're driving or why they're burning so much gasoline. We already have the exact make, year, and model of the vehicles that they're driving. So just know that, I think about it as if the government were a business and its goal were to cut gasoline consumption, it would have dated the heck out of this thing. And so that's what we're doing since the government hasn't been doing it. I think generally state and federal governments have been assuming, and I think ICLEI does this as well, that every EV displaces roughly the same amount of gasoline. And that's just completely false, we're finding in our research. So anyway, we are aiming to release this data and develop a really interactive, sophisticated thing that researchers and policymakers can use to find out things about gasoline consumption in their district or a certain area, and then take very efficient, effective actions in terms of policies and where they put charging and stuff like that to really get the biggest gasoline users to switch to EVs as quickly as possible. So that's that.
Yeah, so thank you. That sounds like an interesting thing to share with the city staff and the commission through the staff, so that we, when it's available, we can take a look too. I'd love to look up our zip code and see what it shows.
Yeah, I could do a presentation or just give a report over to just the, our 94025 zip code. I think that's the only zip code we have in Menlo Park. Is that right? Or is it also 026?
I only know the 025.
Anyway, yes, happy to prepare a little sub report and share that just so that the city can see kind of where we currently stand.
All right, thank you. I look forward to seeing that.
You bet. And just so you know, there's what we call gasoline super users, people in the top 10% for gasoline consumption in every zip code. There's just way more out in the rural areas that are poorly served by transit and where people tend to have to either drive for work or drive long distances to the nearest major metropolitan area.
Right, thank you. And any other commissioner reports? Seeing none, we then can adjourn the meeting. And thank you all for attending our June 15th Environmental Quality Commission meeting. And thank you, and we'll have a great week.
Great. Thank you, Tom, and everybody. Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
one.
Have a good one. See you. Bye.